Today, I had the privilege of sitting down with someone whose story moved me, inspired me, and expanded my perspective on what it means to heal in every sense of the word. Welcome to the Thrive on Plants podcast. I'm Dr. Daphne Bascom, and my guest today, Dr. Teresa Diaz, is an amazing woman. Dr. Diaz is a board-certified obstetrician gynecologist, a trauma survivor, and a fierce advocate for women's health. And she is a woman who literally healed herself. She healed herself from lung cancer using lifestyle, nutrition, and spiritual work alone. Dr. Diaz's story is one of extraordinary resilience, from growing up in poverty and abuse in the Bronx to navigating infertility, grief, weight struggles, and ultimately going through a radical personal and professional transformation. Dr. Diaz brings a warmth, a tenderness, and an unapologetic wisdom to today's Thrive on Plants conversation. I hope you enjoy learning about her story as much as I did. Dr. Teresa Diaz, welcome to the Thrive on Plants podcast.
Oh, thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
I am excited. It's funny because you've been in Menopause Mastery for almost a year, feels like a year. And I feel like I'm just getting to know you. But as I've learned more about your journey, I really would love for you to share it with our community. So would you be willing to share, how did you go from a young girl in the Bronx, was it the Bronx, to an OBGYN?
Oh my God. Wow. Well, I grew up in the South Bronx initially. We were there till I was probably close to 10. And it was pretty rough neighborhood, but so was my home pretty rough. And I don't think I even recognized how rough it was till I was gone for a long time. And for the most part, I think I lived in a lot of fear, and I don't even, again, I didn't think of these things as abnormal. I just felt like, there was a lot of alcohol and drug abuse in my family, and my mom was suicidal. She had 10 children by the time she was 30 and no teeth in her mouth. Right. And when I was around 3, I came home to find her being taken away after attempting suicide. And probably the most pivotal moment as a child. And because I lost her for almost a year, and she had twins while she was locked up. They locked her up for trying to commit suicide. She was battered, right? So it was a lot of chaos. And it's interesting because I had a sister a year and a half younger than me. So if you imagine I was 3 and she was 1.5, there was me. I had a lot of bonding to my mother, but my sister, because she was younger, bonded to my grandmother and my father. So when my mom came home, it was like I dropped everything and went running to her, and my sister was like, "I don't know you. You're a stranger." Right? It's an interesting. So we ended up being very I was very much wanting to be with my mother. My sister wasn't, and that set up a really negative relationship between the two of them. And so she ended up being like a scapegoat in our family. And so she got a lot of beatings and told everything she did was wrong. And there was a lot of physical violence, towards her. My dad towards my mother. There was some towards me, but I think my response or my way of staying safe is to stay out of everybody's way. So I became very quiet. And mostly by the time I was 5 and going into school, I was already overweight. So, it was me going to the corner store, and with these corner grocery stores, you could buy cookies by the penny or the, right? And I literally would eat cookies by the penny or whatever, chocolate or whatever they had. And I used any amount of money I could get to eat chocolate or to eat. So I was already heavy. I was already stuffing a lot of feelings and not recognizing. And not even recognizing it as a problem, except in school. I got teased. because I was overweight when it wasn't in to be overweight, quote in. Um, and my first diet, I was 5 because I would come home crying. And um, and so my mom, took me to a doctor who put me on a fish and chicken diet. And then I think at 11, I remember going to Weight Watchers. There were other things in between, like shots and pills and, weekly weigh-ins as a child. And, by the time I was in the 5th grade, I probably weighed close to 200 pounds. So I had a lifelong thing with weight.
Mhm.
And then even as a teenager, after the first year of high school, we were in some counseling program. And through some of the counseling that I had, I ended up doing like a lot of fasting, which I didn't even know anything about fasting, obviously, but I was trying to lose weight. So I would eat my total cereal because I had everything I needed. And then I wouldn't eat for 3 or 4 days. And then I would go and binge, and then I wouldn't eat. And I think I only recognized binging in my teen years. I don't remember doing that before, but I would eat like whole packs of cookies or a whole half gallon of ice cream, and I didn't understand why I couldn't stop.
Mhm.
And I would share that with my mom, like I can't stop, or my friends, or nobody could help me figure out what the hell was going on. And the one thing I wasn't really able to talk about was the fact that I was being sexually abused, because when I was 5, my mom remarried, left my dad, remarried, and both dads actually sexually abused me. And I think a lot had to do with the fact that I was so quiet. Like it's almost like not that it was my fault. I don't think that, but I just feel like I was very vulnerable because I was very shy and very people pleasing. And I mean, one of the good things about that was like I was this really good student, right? Because I just did what the teachers wanted me to do, and I was smart. And so, I mean, that was how everything started. And I literally made myself tolerate everything in my family until I could finish high school. Whereas my sister, year and a half younger than me, Iris is her first name. She ran away at 11 years old, and she didn't even come back till she was pregnant at 14. Stayed around till she had her baby, and then was gone again. Right, so she was running away all the time. Yeah, but I was like sitting and tolerating everything until I could finish high school, because nobody in my family had finished high school, and I thought it may be my ticket out.
Yeah.
So that was a lot.
That's a
So
smack a lot.
I finished high school ranking 7th in my class at
Congratulations.
2000.
Yeah. Wow.
And I didn't even know what it meant. It was the first time we had like a computer printed and it said rank 7. And I was like, well, it took me a little while. Somebody told me what it meant. I'm like, oh, okay. But, nobody said, you need to go to college, or nobody said, for me, I was just trying to get through high school, and I got to get through it a year early. And so as soon as I got through it, I was gone. I left home. And I was 17. I got my own apartment. And I must have done that for about a year and a half, but all of the sexual abuse started to come up when I got out to be on my own. So I had to start on some level. That all started to come out. I started talking about it. I was dating 2 or 3 boyfriends at a time. Like it was a crazy time. And I think that my binging got even worse when I got out on my own. Again, I wasn't relating the two things at all. Right? I just knew if I was being sexually abused and I looked ugly being fat, then it wasn't my fault. That was the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So then that crazy time when I was maybe a year or so, when I had my own apartment, and then at some point I just took the Greyhound bus to California. I didn't know that's where I was going. I just got on a bus.
Really?
I had
Okay.
$50 in my pocket. I didn't even, without even like the forethought of $50 isn't going to last very long, or none of that. I was just leaving. And I used up all that $50 on the way across trying to eat. And then I ended up in downtown LA. I met this guy who I ended up living with for the first year and stuff. And I realized I didn't even have any skills to work, even though I finished high school.
Mhm.
Right. And when I was in New York, I was doing some nurse's aid, and in New York, that's a union job, so they paid better. But when I got to LA, it was like a minimum wage job. So I did some bookkeeping classes and then ended up doing some, making enough money to live on. And um and then I started piecemealing, because while I was in New York for that year, I spent some time in college, did about a year at City College in New York, CCNY.
Mhm.
And so I had a year under my belt, and then when I was in LA, I did another 6 months. And then I moved up to Marin, and I did the rest. I did the rest of my 2 years, which probably took me like 6 years.
Okay.
And then I transferred all those credits into San Francisco State, and finished those last 2 years in the 2 years, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then I was doing counseling. What I do, I counsel women, little kids that were sexually abused. I was part of a group. Mostly I was driving the kids, to and from counseling programs. Some of them were in foster care, but they were all like sexually abused kids. And then I was also in a group with parents, both offending and non-offending parents,
Mhm.
which was so informative, just to kind of see the whole picture. I mean, there's not too many places that we actually get to look at an issue from all the sides, and it's like, there were men who had offended their kids, there were moms whose husband offended their child, there were stepdads, there was like all these, and we were all in a group together.
Mhm.
It was pretty wild. And so there was something very valuable in my mind about just getting to know where the men were coming from, what it was like on the other parent, and then them getting to see what it was like to be somebody who had survived that.
Right.
Right. So that was a huge piece of my learning in my 20s. And I also then got involved in another group that did a lot of unlearning oppression.
Mhm.
And again, we did this we recruited teenagers from high school from a variety of backgrounds, like made it very diverse, gender equal, and we started on a 7-day journey of what is oppression. Day 1 would be racism, day 2 was sexism, and day 3 would be like anti-Semitism and the anti-gay. And so we actually got to listen to each other and to look at how hurtful the whole oppression thing was.
Mhm.
But it was like I could see it from all the angles. Again, like that was a huge piece of my training. It's just like being open to the 360 view of everything. Right. But see, that then gave me like some impetus to feel like I didn't have a lot of limitations.
Uh-huh.
Right. Like, oh, this is how oppression has impacted me. I grew up poor. I grew up in a mixed African American, Puerto Rican background, and I don't know, just the huge impact that had, and to then just say, oh, this really did impact me. It's not all in my head,
Yeah.
right? And this has, you know, real human emotional issues and connections, and how I see myself and how I see the world. So that really just gave me a lot of like belief that I could actually overcome even my own limitations, which I thought were even wider than what I grew up in.
Mhm.
Right. And at one point later on, I was actually in the middle of a master's program at San Francisco State doing counseling psychology. And about halfway through, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to give free work. I'm not going to be able to make much money after I'm done. All right, now I'm in my 30s, right? And I said, what else could I do? I was pretty good at math and science. Could I become a doctor? I started just mulling back over, just like
Mhm.
that. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Like, I had no idea. Like,
But at that point, you've done everything else on your own. This was what
and I'm like, I was like, like I thought it was a big deal just to finish high school, right? And so even going through undergraduate was like, oh, I did a little bit here. Can I do a little bit more? It was just this little bit. This is sort of how I do everything. It's kind of interesting because, even I was 300 pounds at one point. So even that journey, right? These last 20 years have really been the majority of my health journey. Mm-hmm. Really, that I really turned things around. So it's, and I don't think it takes that long for most people, but for me, it's always I'll take on a piece at a time. Like I'm just putting my toe in the water.
that
That's how I function, So the other thing right alongside those years in my 20s and early 30s was that I had an infertility issue because I had already had like 3 ectopics. I had 3 ectopics in my, I want to say between 27, maybe 30-ish I was. So I had 3 ectopic pregnancies. Uh-huh. And so I had to do IVF. And even that was like, I can't afford to do IVF. Just like, right, I'm sitting there like, but I need IVF. And I knew that it was the thing. And it was still kind of controversial and early, it was in the 90s still. Mm-hmm. At this point. And I was just, and I ended up doing a whole lot of other treatments because I couldn't get the IVF covered. And that was why I ended up with the 3 ectopics. It was because I was doing all these other treatments for infertility that was covered by Kaiser. And
oh, so you had health insurance though?
Yeah. Yeah, but it wouldn't cover any of the fertility stuff except
because it's expensive.
Inseminations. They even dealt with the 3 major emergency surgeries that I had to have for those ectopics, right? And they were literally 9 months apart. I don't know if that's like, I don't know if that was a divine thing or what. Right? They were literally 9 months apart, my ectopics. And so then it was like, okay, I need to do the IVF. And I knew this doctor. I had met this doctor who was willing to kind of cost share the risk. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be able to do 3 in case the first or second didn't work. I didn't want to just do 1 and then not have access to the other 2. Yeah. And so this doctor said, okay, everybody can pay 1.5 times and everybody gets guaranteed 3 tries. So he did this cost sharing thing. So I collected a bunch of credit cards. And they were all like $5,000 each. And, at that time, I think it was like 20 grand or something just to do it for his services. Okay. Wow. To do the 1.5. It was like 20,000. This is in 1990 or so. Because I ended up having my daughter in 94. She was born in 94. So, of course, I got pregnant on the first one. Good. But it was like this miracle. I had been trying for like 15 years. So this is the reason I'm talking about this is because I had her and got accepted to medical school at the same time.
No way.
I'm just... So I got accepted into medical school. I started at 35 years old and in 1994, the same year she was born. So when I started medical school, she was 6 months old and I was still breastfeeding.
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding?
Mm-mm.
Wow.
It gets better or worse. I don't know what to say. So it was interesting because what I did was I tried to spread my first 2 years over 3. I'm not sure that made much difference, but maybe it did. And I also let myself not be like the top dog in the class. Right? It just...
Where did you go to medical school?
At Robert Wood Johnson at the time it was called, now it's Rutgers. So it's Rutgers Medical School.
Okay. So you came back to the East Coast.
Yeah, my husband, my 6-month-old and me drove across the country for me to start medical school. And the interesting thing is that in some ways, if I had it to do over, I wouldn't have done so much moving. Mm-hmm. I did a lot of moving during medical school and residency and all that. And I think I would develop like some supports because I didn't really have a support system family, right? So I would develop some supports, but I don't think I give enough credit to how important those supports were. And so I kept moving to places where I had no support. And so it was really hard. It was not like an easy thing to. And so what happened when she was 4 years old, her dad died. My husband at the time died.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
In an accident. And so then all of a sudden, while I'm in medical school, I lose my husband. I become a single parent, right? And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to go into OBGYN and have her at 4 years old. I can't do it, right? I mean, I even had my mom come stay with me for a while, but she was getting sicker. And not quite then, but over the year forward, she was getting sicker and sicker and unable to really take care of my daughter. So I ended up remarrying because he was super helpful. He was, he ended up not being good for her, but at the time it was like I needed somebody to do the shopping, pick her up, drop her off. I was doing crazy hours in a residency. I started off in family medicine. And I spent a year doing that and just realized that's not really my calling. My calling is OBGYN, period. So he said, well, why don't you just go and do the OB? So it's crazy because at the time I ended up doing my first year of residency in Massachusetts, in Lawrence, Massachusetts. Okay. And then I came down and we actually bought a house in New Jersey, and I went to Einstein in Philadelphia. That's where I did my first 2 years of my first 2 years of OBGYN residency. I was kind of a little rebellious.
Meaning? What you
meaning that I don't see myself. I'm just outside the norm. I'm not in the norm, never have been, in a sense. And so I tend to want to be quiet about it in a way. But this one point while I was doing residency, I wrote an editorial to one of the OB magazines. And I just talked about how incredibly difficult it was to be a resident, period, without sleep, and how ridiculous it was for them to set it up that way. And literally, I remember doing 3 36-hour shifts, sort of back to back. I'd stop for 10 hours, and then I'd come back for another 36, and I'd go home for 10 hours and do it. And I would literally be trying to drive and blacking out, not even remembering anything about getting home. And it was just, it was nothing like I expected it. And there were times when I would just be crying because it'd be dark when I was leaving. It would be hella late when I'm coming home. I don't see my kid. I don't see my husband at the time. It was really a horrendous time. But, and I kept saying, I don't know if I can make it through this. I was like, after this, middle of the second, I didn't think I would make it. And I did. I made it through it. But it was at a cost, I would say.
The cost being
like my daughter not having me, her mom. She had already lost her dad. Right. So there was a lot of cost in terms of I sort of sacrificed her. And it's interesting because one of the things I do is a lot of self-abandonment. So of course my mom was that way, and then she taught me to be that way, and I taught her to be that way. And so I do a lot of work with her now. We connect a lot more than we did for a while.
That's good.
I just think she was really upset. She didn't feel well taken care of. She felt like, the person I married that helped her, physically helped her, go and come and go from school and would make wonderful meals and all that. But he was really verbally abusive to her. And when she would complain, he would call her tattletale. And it was just like, and she got to, she wouldn't even tell me what was going on because she just felt like I didn't protect her, and I didn't. I was, trying to manage 120 hours a week, right, at work. And so I feel like that was, those two happening at the same time just made it a lot more difficult. Even though I got through it, I felt like there were 10 years in there that I didn't take care of my health. I didn't take care of my daughter, right? My marriage was, I don't even know. I mean, he's not even alive today either, but he was like 600 pounds, right?
Yep. Really? Oh my gosh.
So lots of stuff. So I think when I was in medical school, And I was just gaining weight, and I think part of it was I had quit smoking in my early 30s.
Mhm.
I had just had a baby.
Mhm.
I had started medical school, and I was just eating candy while I studied. Gummies, if I remember. Gummies, that's what I remember most. I'm sure I ate other things, but that's what I remember, just sitting there eating gummies, like, to kinda, I don't know, calm my whole system and, like, abandon myself in a sense in order to accomplish this 10-year task.
Just to get through. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yep, yep. And then, I had been in California for so long that, I had a lot of friends, and one of my friends who also went to medical school, she was like, "Come back, come into work here at Highland Hospital, in Oakland," and so I ended up coming back, and it was that because we had friends, she had family here, and because her father's family was here in California, and the other reason I did it was because of the litigation around OBGYNs back then was so bad in most of the states, but California was not like that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like OBGYNs would be it's a common thing for them all to get sued for
Mhm.
one thing or another, and it's super litigation.
Yeah.
I don't know, lots of litigation that happens. And so I was like, I didn't want to live like that. And so I was in California, they cap pain and suffering to I think it's 10,000.
Got
It,
it.
and
That's
so
that's significant. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, in other states you could sue for millions, right?
Yeah.
And so, and all kinds of things go wrong in pregnancy, right? I mean, who even knew? Thank God I was pregnant before I was an OBGYN because
I was gonna say.
and it
Well,
wasn't
after you know that you're like, I would this isn't safe.
right. I mean, I don't think I recognized how unsafe pregnancy was.
And with your weight, you were probably a high risk. Yeah.
I think I gained more of it after she was born,
Okay.
but I think I went up to about 250
Okay.
with it, which is a lot. I'm not saying that's not, but I didn't quite get to 300 yet. And I was 300 after the pregnancy. I was 250 in the pregnancy, so that's even more weight that I gained after.
Wow.
Um, and then so here I am running around trying to get to the C-section. I can barely get my shoes on. I'm thinking I'm out of breath running up the stairs, right? And I'm like, I need to do something about this. Like there's this consciousness that I had gained that much weight because I wasn't even noticing that I was gaining so much weight. So that was probably my max. Anyway, so that's how I ended up in medical school.
Teresa, I didn't half of that what you just shared, I did not see coming. Um,
It's I've had a crazy life.
that is you've had an amazing journey. I mean, we talk about resilience,
Mm.
and I think we talk about it too much. But what you did is amazing. Um, Especially knowing who you are today, because it would have been easy for you to not be where you are now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not being where I want to be, even though it's hard. I mean, it's hard to do this, but it's also hard to not do what I have passion for,
Mhm.
right?
And you said you were called to be an OB. Uh,
Mhm.
I mean, what does that mean? What was your calling? Why? I'd love to hear about what called you to do OB, because you could have done deliveries as a family practitioner, but it sounded like that there was something more that you wanted to do in terms of either the gynecologic surgery or the obstetrics. But how, what was your calling? And then when did you decide that you had to focus on your health?
I I would say, that when I mentioned trying to run to I'm literally seeing a specific time when I ran up these stairs. I could barely get up it. I could barely put my booties on because I've gotten so big.
Mhm.
And that was a one little notch right there that said, "Mm-mm, this isn't okay." Right? That was one. Um, and then some point, I remember doing a surgery, and we did a gastric Roux-en-Y. Because I was doing rotations. We did a Roux-en-Y, a gastric bypass on someone, and she lost all this weight. So I actually had that doctor do that on me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and 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 it was weird. The thing that was really unexpected was I only lost 40 pounds on that. I thought that I'd, at least lose 100 pounds or something like everybody else was, but I only lost like, because I would bet that a lot of my weight too was stress.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I mean, like I only lost 40, and then I hung out at about 260 for a long time. I would say, when did I start turning that around? Probably 10 years later. So probably right around 98. That's when I lost my husband.
Mm-hmm.
I had that surgery just before he died.
Okay.
So I lost about 40 pounds then. And I kind of hung out around that weight for a long time. And then in about 2008, I went to Weight Watchers. And one of the things I remember one of my girlfriends saying to me is, "Where do you want to be in a year?" And I'm like, "Well, I have my baby that I wanted so much. I have a great job. I'm married. I got a beautiful home, and what I would love to do is lose 100 pounds." That's what I said to her. And I said, "But I have to do something different than I've ever done." And I don't know. The thing that I did was, I put a treadmill in my garage.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I have to do 10 minutes before I go to work. We had crazy hours still, even as an OBGYN. Not as bad in residency, but still. And I was up in the middle of the night doing, surgeries and all that stuff. But so I got a treadmill. And I would go in and do 10 minutes, but 10 minutes became 30 minutes, became 45 minutes. Right. And when I started getting consistent, I put a TV in there and I would watch Oprah shows.
You reward yeah.
So I would have these recordings and I would just put it on and listen to whatever and try and catch up with all the things I couldn't watch TV a lot, because I was busy working. And so that was always like I could just listen to that and do my workout. So that was good. And I had to, when I first started, I had to do it before I went to have coffee, because coffee was my routine since my grandmother put coffee in my baby bottle.
Oh my gosh.
So I had been drinking coffee for a very long time. And I still do, but so that's that. But what was the other question? You had the other question was,
Why OB?
oh,
Out of all the specialties that you could have chosen.
I did the family medicine. I hated the ICU. I'm glad there is an ICU, but I don't want to be in it. That was just like, what? And then, they put you in there when you're first early on resident, like you're supposed to act like you know what you're doing. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know any of this stuff. And then up in the middle of the night trying to write notes, and I haven't had sleep, and the words were coming from my dream.
Oh my God.
Gibberish. Anyway, and then, I couldn't call the doctors, or they would be really pissed off if I called and say, hey, you something else, so
Calling for help is a sign of weakness.
right. And so I'm just like, I hate this stuff. And I hated medicine itself, the actual medicine. I loved OBGYN. And I was very interested in how my mother kept being pregnant. Right. And I remember that it was just a fascinating thing, like, well, how does that happen? Oh, your dad puts a seed in me. And I literally pictured him putting a seed in her.
Oh gosh, how
like a little like that you would grow from. And then part of it is just that my mom had so many kids. And to me, I only knew about my brother and sister, right? But it just was curious, like, how does that happen? And I remember going to my grandmother, my stepfather's mother. I think she was raised in North Carolina. She was living with us, and he used to braid her hair. And so I would hang out with her and talk with her all the time. And I was learning I don't know, I might have been in about 5th grade maybe. And I said, how do babies really get made? You're hearing stuff, from other kids, and I'm thinking that's that's wild, whatever. And he said, she says to me, they stick their pee-pee in you. And I was like, whoa, it's true. But, she did not hesitate to answer me.
She told you the truth.
Yeah, which was awesome. Like, I remember that moment to this day. Right? So, that was amazing.
Oh my God.
I just had a genuine curiosity that I didn't necessarily I think this is an interesting thing that I think about how I survived is that I retracted so much because I was just so afraid of people's reactions.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a level that I kept very connected to my body, right? It was not a conscious thing again. It was just, it's almost like there was a little girl in there that, the one that has all the wisdom. And it just felt like I could always rely on her knowing to know what to do next. It was never something I planned. Like I didn't, I wanted to finish high school. That's the only plan I had. And then it was like, maybe I can take some classes at college. I literally walked up to CCNY and said, I want to go to college. And they said, you have to do a test. I said, okay, where, when? I took the test. I'm sure that was the SAT. To this day, I don't even know what test. I'm sure it was a SAT or something like that. Right? I mean, that's how little I knew about going to college, even though I ranked 7th out of 2,000 kids.
That's amazing.
So, and partly I was really good at math because they had these 3-hour Regents tests. I got a perfect score. I remember them saying, she got a perfect score, I like geometry. I don't know why. I have visual spatial sense. That's really why, right? I could look at the box and I say, which box would end up looking like this, and I could pick it out, right?
Sounds like you should have been an engineer.
Right, I probably should have, but I didn't even know what that was. I remember I met this guy. He says, "So I went to MIT." I'm like, "What's that?"
Oh my gosh!
And he was like, "What do you mean? What's that?" I'm like, "I don't know what that is." Right. So yeah, my experience is not like most people would think somebody where I'm at. And my late husband would say, it's really surprising that things you do not understand.
And then I was so smart. You're not so smart.
Right. Like in the places I'm not very smart, and it just kind of it blows his mind that I don't know any of this. I'm not super well rounded. I hated her history. I hated wars, and I just hated like that would be what history was, wars. That was not interesting to me. Or like, and I didn't like English because they would make us read things that weren't relevant. Right? They just weren't. Shakespeare's wasn't relevant to me, or who knows what else. But I read things that I liked, but literature and all that stuff, like, ugh. So I wasn't good at those at all, and but math and science, oh yeah, I'm all in that. I love chemistry. Chemistry has a lot of math in it. I don't think I recognized that when I was younger, but right, it's like I like biology, especially human biology,
You gravitated to your strengths and what you enjoyed.
Yeah. And that was again the passion. I would just do what I was passionate about. And other than that, I didn't care.
Talking about passionate things, so you reached 300 pounds
Mm-hmm.
and then you became passionate about your health enough that you got a treadmill and you started walking.
Yeah, that was in 2008. I think my daughter was almost 10, I guess. Or maybe more than 10. She was maybe closer to 13 or around 13 years old at this point. I don't know why. I had done residency for one. Residency was over for me in 2004. We had moved back to California. I bought a home. Actually, we rented a home while we were waiting for our home to be built.
Mm-hmm.
So we rented, and then they were selling it from under us, and we weren't ready. So I bought that house, moved into the new one, and sold it. But it was when we started to settle down into that house, I think, that then I started doing the Weight Watcher thing and doing the exercise. Um, and I lost. I want to say I got down to just a little bit to 160. I'm probably right now about 155, but I got down to 160.
Okay.
Right? And then and I was exercising and I had weights that I was doing and I mean I have this great picture. We were on a cruise and I look hot. I was like, that's me, 160, right? And then over time I started putting weight back on again. I would say I was getting a divorce. I literally at some point had to it turned out that this husband of mine, the one after the other one died, um he he had literally convinced me that he was an accountant, a CPA, and that he had gotten his license in California. And come to find out, after 11 years of marriage, he never was. That was a lie, all of it. And then I started realizing a lot of what he was telling me was a lie, right? And so that was just, that was sort of the straw. I mean, I was already very unhappy with him because of how he was treating my daughter, and so I ended up being in the middle of a divorce. I had already by this point met my a brother and sister. That was the oldest of the ones my mom had. Mm-hmm. My brother and his wife came and lived with me for 2 years. Mm-hmm. But they never really worked or helped pay for anything, so at one point it was like it was too much to hold them to. And there was my daughter and we had 3 dogs, and I was like, you know what, I'm getting this divorce, and everything was about to balloon, because once I was there 5 years, it was going to balloon. It was a lot of stuff, so I walked away from it, and I walked away from conventional medicine at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
I just walked away from everything. Everything I built, I felt like it was not on a solid foundation, and I needed to go. My daughter was going off to college, and right the year she left, I let the house go into bankruptcy. Into whatever, not bankruptcy, but foreclosure.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked away from my job. I know that as I was getting the divorce, he was going to try and come after me for alimony. And so that was one of the reasons that I walked away. I had injured my back in the process of moving from the house to the next place that I lived, and so I actually had to go out on disability for a while. I ended up getting surgery on my back because it was just like something pinching a nerve that was making my leg. So eventually I had them take it off because I was falling, right? Because I wouldn't be able to hold myself up on that leg. And I literally, when I took her to DC, to move to DC to go to school, I literally was using a walker, and I'm thinking, is this what old age is going to be like?
Wow.
And I had already come down to 160 at that point. Okay. But still I couldn't walk, right? I was having trouble walking. And even I remember one time I went to a conference in Massachusetts. And they had to take me to the hospital because I literally couldn't move. I was in so much pain. Like, don't touch me. I couldn't even walk back to my bed or go to the bathroom. I wouldn't move. I would not move. It was so bad. Like something caught the nerve in my back, and it was just, yeah. So they ended up giving me an epidural, but eventually I got surgery. So, and then at 51, guess what I did? I learned how to ski.
I'm sure that's not what your surgeon probably told you were supposed to be doing.
No. I started dating, and I met this guy on a dating app, and he was going to Never Ever Black People Ski event, and I went and had a ball. I was like, we were dancing, and I was like trying to go down this little bunny hill, and I just kept trying it over and over. And then I tried these little hills, and I was just like I don't know why I liked it so much. I was scared to get on a lift. I wasn't yet able to get on a lift, but it was just like, and just the camaraderie and the people and the partying. I literally have not stopped since. Like, I've been skiing ever since, right? And right. I go 2 or 3 times a year to some kind of, so that's one of the things I really love doing. Mostly because of the group, like
The community.
Yeah, the community of it, they all know me, I know them, new people come all the time. It's just fun. And Kenton, who never did any snow sport, I bought him like he was getting a little irritated that I was leaving him behind as I was going all these events, right? And he didn't want anybody to snatch me up. And so he I bought him a snowboard because he didn't really take to the skis too much because he's bow-legged. And so he loves snowboarding now. So we go together all the time. It's awesome. I love it. So I don't know. It's been quite an adventurous life. I've been with him for like 7 years, 7.5 years.
Okay.
And so yeah, that's a lot.
Well, you left out a piece in there. Tell me about your plant-based journey. Were you born eating plants or?
No. You know what? We used to eat canned green beans. And we used to eat
I remember those.
bird's eye, frozen. And then my mom would put it in the water, boil it, and my grandmother would do this and put all this butter in it. I hated vegetables. I did not like avocados. I did not like. The only thing I would eat was iceberg lettuce. Because I didn't really. There was nothing. I was not around any fresh vegetables. I'm in the house, It wasn't even something I thought about. And when I started doing diets back in my teen years, like I said, I would do like total. It said I got 100% of all of the vitamins I needed, right? And literally I thought that was good with some
advertising.
And you literally, and of course, I didn't talk about a lot of these things I was doing. I just did them on my own.
Yep.
Right. So it wasn't like anybody was going to interfere. Like I remember they told me I should go to the Bronx High School of Science, right? My science teacher suggested that I apply, right? And I'm like, I don't want to be dumb in a smart school. I want to be smart in a dumb school. So I literally had that thought. I said that out loud to my mom. I think I said that, but still, nobody interrupted that. That thinking, Yeah. So how did I start being a vegan? I got diagnosed with lung cancer. And right after COVID, right at the beginning of COVID, it was in 2020.
Okay.
And I had lung cancer. I had a 6-centimeter mass which is about the width of my hand. You know why? Because this is 3 centimeters. That's when I used to do vaginal exams, right? When I would do cervical, to see where people are. So I'd be like, oh yeah, that's 3 centimeters. So this must be 6 centimeters. That's how I kind of. And
were you symptomatic before that?
Say it again.
Were you how did you? 6 centimeters.
From coughing. I was coughing, and I thought I had maybe a bronchitis. I gave myself some antibiotics. And then I was like, it persisted. And then I was like, oh, well, maybe I need some antifungals or something. I didn't know what it was. Right. And so, I eventually went to a primary care physician and they said, oh, you got asthma. I'm like, I've never had asthma in my life. Right. I'm not asthmatic. I don't have allergies. That was kind of like an off, but she gave me albuterol and sent me on my way. And
no chest x-ray?
No, not yet.
Ooh.
And then finally she does do a chest x-ray and then she says, yeah, we see something in there. And then they sent me for a CT scan. And then of course they did a biopsy eventually and I found out I had lung cancer. And it was in the middle lobe of the right, which is the smallest lobe. So I ended up having that taken out. But here's the interesting thing. I don't know how many lymph nodes. I think they said like 14 lymph nodes. If I knew what I knew now, I would have said, don't take all my lymph nodes. Try 3 and that's it. But none of it. There was no metastasis, even though I had that big mass. And I know in my heart, in my gut, I know it was because I had been eating 2 pounds of vegetables a day for the prior 5 years.
Ooh. You're missing steps in the story. So you started eating 2 pounds of vegetables?
Like 5 years before I got diagnosed with cancer. I didn't think, I started making smoothies and big salads, right? I'm not sure why I made that decision. I don't remember the decision at all. I just knew I had been doing that for 5 years. And, I had tried so many different diets in my lifetime. I can't even tell you what they all are, but I know something inspired me to do that. And I knew it made me feel better too, right? So I kept doing it. So for 5 years, I had already been eating 2 pounds of vegetables a day. And I've made a variety of it. I would make it taste good, put a little lemon, put some fruit in it, but mostly it was green vegetables. And those shakes, even the ones that I make now, have a pound of vegetables in it. So my signature recommendation as a physician to everyone I see, 2 pounds of vegetables every day, right? I say 1 to 2 because I think 2 pounds is kind of overwhelming when you think about it to them. But I say 1 to 2 pounds of vegetables. That first pound, you get that in raw. The rest is gravy. If you want to eat some cooked vegetables, fine, whatever. But 1 pound of raw vegetables. And now, like when I talk to patients now, I say, soil-based microbes. That's what our microbiome is. Soil-based microbes, right? And on those raw vegetables, you're going to get a probiotic all at once. Then you got to give them more vegetables because they're vegetable eaters, right? And then I think when we were talking last week, how do I know my gut is healthy? Because I'm having nice, long, healthy, fermented poops, right? I don't feel bloated when I eat something, right? Or and I feel like I have a lot of energy, more energy than I had when I was in my 40s, right?
I agree with you there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can ski, I can roller skate, I can bike ride. I'm 66, going on 67, right? And I don't take a ton of the only medicine I take is a thyroid replacement, and I take hormones. Definitely 5 years of hormones. And as an OBGYN, I watched the women that I worked with, and I was like, wow, these women are really struggling in menopause. Right? And I didn't have a whole lot in my toolbox for them. I didn't know anything. We never got taught to talk about nutrition. We never got taught. In fact, we were being taught not to give hormones.
Yep.
With the disinformation that it causes cancer. Right? The Women's Health Initiative that everybody quotes as the reason they say this, that's not what it says.
No.
It does not prove at all. That's not what the result was. And so, in fact, the people that were on estrogen, which isn't even bioidentical, right? It's horse estrogen. People on horse estrogen, they had lower breast cancer in the group that just had estradiol. Right? And then in the other group, it was horse estrogen with Provera, which is not even real progesterone, right? And then that group had really 1 in 1,000, less than 1 in 1,000 risk of breast cancer, which is not even significant.
Right.
So 25 years of women just suffering through menopause. That's what I began to discover because I was headed for menopause. That's what spurred me learning about menopause. I was headed for it. I didn't want to lose my libido. I was getting ready to be divorced. I wanted to date. I wanted to be able to have my sex and not lose my libido. So I started learning about hormones, and I luckily could prescribe my own hormones. And I didn't have to ask permission. I didn't have to go to somebody that was a gatekeeper of it. And I learned. And probably most of the 25 years, I just have done steady state estradiol progesterone. And at one point, I even did a little bit of testosterone until I realized if I give women enough DHEA, they make their own testosterone. Which is very nice. And I don't know. Then I started doing work with menopause because I walked away from medicine. I literally was driving Uber for a while. Right? I didn't want to do medicine anymore until I began to just say, I'm going to treat people in menopause and maybe even weight. At first, I wasn't sure whether it was going to be weight or menopause. But ultimately, they do go together. They do go together. But at the time, I wasn't quite figuring out how those two things were going to be put together yet. And in reality, my niche is menopause or perimenopause, and sometimes young women who have crazy periods because it's all the same thing. It's not the same thing. It's a lack of proper, it's a lack of proper ovulation. That's what perimenopause is, and that's what PCOS is, and that's what um all of the metabolic syndromes, those it's insulin resistance, diabetes. It causes an inability to ovulate regularly, and it's the sugar. It's all the processed foods that we eat,
Processed foods.
right? And this is when I started recognizing that. When I was a resident, I had this 45-year-old who was having her third baby in her 40s, all three of them. And she told me that she had PCOS in all her younger years. She sold her house, did all this fertility treatment with the money that she got from the sale of her house, didn't get pregnant. She went on Sugar Buster's diet and got pregnant at 40. And I just had another patient recently that told me this a similar story. And then she tried a healthy. Right. And then she tried it a second time. She says, I think it's the diet. And she tried it a second time, had baby number 2. And I met her. She's about to deliver baby number 3. 40 to 45, 3 babies.
Ouch.
Well, she was very happy. And so I just recently had another woman, because I see all menopausal women now, right? So I saw this woman. She says, oh, I couldn't get pregnant. I tried for years. She did get pregnant once. I had a miscarriage, and then she gave up. And then she said, and then I went on a juice fast.
Got healthy.
It is. It's the health. It's eating healthy food. It's giving micronutrients to those little mitochondria. It's, I learned when I got my cancer, I even worked at a cancer place for like 10 months. Who knew? Somebody just found me and said, we want you to come work for,
Really?
Yeah, but I wasn't really, I was good at doing functional medicine. I was not good at all that chemo and they had a lot of other alternative things. And it was a lot to learn. And I don't think I had enough. I don't know. But I was there for 10 months and then I left. But I learned a ton. Yeah. I was here to learn what I learned, right? And so one of the things I learned was, the reason we get cancer is we lose 30% of the mitochondria in a cell.
Mitochondria are key.
So we lose 30%. The cell, in its attempt to survive, goes back to the DNA, goes to a primitive form of producing energy, which is fermentation. And cancer cells are chronically fermenting cells. And so if you stay as alkaline, if you keep your body alkaline by eating vegetables, live vegetables, not cooked vegetables, live vegetables with electron donors, right? Because they're living, they donate chemicals that have electrons that are still flowing, right? And so if you keep your body alkalinized by doing that, you won't get cancer.
And did you treat your own cancer too?
Yes. Well, I did get surgery. They took the
right. You had the lobectomy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My lymph nodes were negative, right?
Okay.
And they said, well, you should have chemo. And I'm like, well, if you got it all, why do I need chemo? Right. And so, and then I started studying Chris beat cancer.
Yeah.
You heard of him? Yeah. So he's where I started my journey, right? And he talks all about vegetables as a way of undoing cancer. And so if there were any cells left in my body, I was going to not have them do anything. They were not going to give me more cancer. And I knew I could do it with the vegetables. And so that was the beginning of really becoming vegan.
Okay.
So I'd say 2020, even though I had already been eating 2 pounds of vegetables, but I ate other things. I wasn't like a non-meat eater at that point. Yeah. That's why I said everything's like I put my toe in. And then I started talking about it with everybody. That's the other thing. And so listening to him, then I became vegan. And then I was like, if I have to eat rice and beans one more day, I think I'm going to shoot my...
You became vegan on a limited scope.
Right. That's what I saw. I saw salads with rice and beans. That was how I was eating for almost a year, the first year.
Oh. That's no fun.
I didn't know, another way. And then I found Dr. Furman. So he had these 20-day meal plans. And there was about 3 of them, right? 3 or 4 of them I got my hands on. And so I would just pick and choose different recipes. I'm like, oh, this could actually taste good. These are, and right, like today I'm making some sweet potato, lentil, coconut curry.
That's
Right.
delicious. Yeah.
And I might put it over some quinoa, some brown rice or something. But I mean, that's, like, so when did I become 100% vegan? I would say, I would say maybe the last year and a half or two.
Okay.
That's how long it took. But
That
I
that's
mean,
okay. Just like you dip your toe in.
right. But see, I was already eating a lot of vegetables, right? And now I would say if I ate meat, it was like it was Thanksgiving and I ate some meat, right?
Mhm.
Or Puerto Ricans, we eat pork. So sometimes I'll dabble, but literally even on Thanksgiving, I just wanted one little slice just to join in, and then I'm like, why am I even joining in this? Because I don't even like it. I might like some, ribs or something like that. Like it was like I saw some ribs on sale. I'm like, okay, well, have at it. And so he said, I didn't buy it.
Freaking vegan.
No, but he tells me all the time how much I've changed his health. Literally, he was an asthmatic. I mean, asthma, like he was taking steroids, having all the side effects of steroids, including a hernia and, just, how the steroid gives you the moon phase. So
Mhm.
he took steroids. And I said, if you eat vegetables, you won't need that. He didn't trust it for a long time. But if you keep eating vegetables and you become plant-based, you won't need that
And
because
he
the
did.
inflammation goes down. I did it with my own body. I know that everything I've learned and the fact that I've had biochemistry really helps. Right? Just that I understand biochemistry, that I like chemistry, that I can actually put the two and two together. Like I tell my patients, how many animals need money to eat except humans? And they look at me just like that. They go, ah, and then they laugh, right? And I say, okay, so we've handed the job of nature to corporations. That's not a good exchange. Right? So, the more you stay away from corporation food, the better you're going to do.
Yeah.
I see. And what else do I tell them? About how good their poops get? And tell me about that. There's just sort of, a few signature things that I share, and they'll be like, oh my God, all this information.
We're going to try.
Right. And so I need to just teach all this stuff. I teach it on one-on-one basis. I just never have tried to teach it like in a group setting, Um, but they're just stuff I've put together
Right now.
Yes. um, let's see.
So you are on, if I had to count, just from keeping track, you are on your fourth career. So what excites you now? I mean, I'm not going to share your age on the worldwide YouTube.
I don't really care. I don't care. I'm 67. I'm a energetic 67. I'm not on
You don't look like 67.
and I have the energy of a young person, right? So I don't know. I have aging signs, but I'm like,
What are aging signs? What that mean?
like skin, especially as I've taken off weight. Because when I got my the cancer, when I got diagnosed with cancer, I went up to about 205. Right, I was right at about 205 at that point. So I had gone from that 160 and up to 205 over a period of time, and the whole the whole vegan journey is obviously I've taken off this weight, but I was stuck at 170 forever.
Okay.
I was stuck at the 170. I couldn't move, right? And now since I've been in in the vegan gym, I'm like 150. I vacillate between 156 and 158, something like that.
That's amazing. That's great.
Right? That's the smallest I've been as an adult.
But two things. One, you do not look your age. Two, you've demonstrated that even after menopause, you can lose weight. So menopause is not a
Yes.
sentence by which everything just falls off the rail and you can't pull it back together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have an opportunity now to help share all of these messages with women, which I think is so important because
Yes.
you didn't learn it at medical school. I didn't learn it at medical school. We don't teach it in life.
So
But
it's so outside the norm.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm even like afraid of like my boss where, like I work 4 days a week for a company that works with menopause, right? Yeah, but it's almost like I have this feel like they're gonna jump on me because I had one patient even complained that I told them they had to be vegan, which I never tell people that. But I tell them I am, but and maybe even why, but I do tell them I do say I want you to eat 1 to 2 pounds of vegetables a day. That's my signature recommendation for
That's
everybody.
okay. They
Right. But I always get like, afraid that, my boss gonna come down like, why are you telling these people to become vegan? you know? And I'm like, and then, another part of me will say, then you just tell them that this is what the science shows is the best way to eat.
But you can write a prescription for plants just like you can write a prescription for anything else.
Right.
If you choose to fill that prescription, that's your choice.
Yes. Right.
You're right. You're not going to their house, making it and telling them this is the only thing you can eat. You're
Right.
educating them and empowering them to make a decision.
And take charge of their health at this point and not be on 15 medications in the next 5 to 10 years. And they want that. And, I go through their labs and I always go line by line with them through their labs.
Mhm.
So when I look at the labs and if I see their LDL is elevated, that's the opportunity that you're taking in too much saturated fat.
Mhm.
That's my opportunity, right? Um, like, and there are other things. I can watch things like they're too acidic because their CO2 is low, right? So I look at their CO2 and I say, okay, that goes low because you breathe just a little faster, trying to get rid of some of the acid in your body.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, you need more. You need to alkalinize your body more so that you don't have to do that. You don't want your body acidic. If you have an alkaline body, you'll never get cancer. Not only that, when you do these changes, you won't have heart disease, you won't have high blood pressure, you won't have high cholesterol, you won't have many diseases that people get as they get older.
Mhm.
So, and everybody's like, "Oh, those are really good uh doable steps that you tell me. I love this, 45 minutes that you spent with me or, you know, but I really just open. It's like there's an open, and sometimes I even have if I think that somebody's going to be a little bit closed, I'll say, for this, I want you to try to open your mind and maybe change your mind. I'm going to try and change your mind about a few things, right? So I want you to be as open minded as possible and just try to take in what I'm saying. And so that I don't get as much resistance from them, you know. But, that woman who complained that you know, uh,
Wanted to become vegan.
yeah, like, I do say, eat some more high protein plant-based foods so that you don't have such high cholesterol. I'm not saying don't eat meat, but you still need protein, you know.
Mhm.
And I tell them I do 120 grams of protein without meat.
Uh-huh.
And they, how do you do that, Dr. Diaz? and I mean, all the stuff I learned let me tell you, the reason I found you guys is because I'm like, my hair was falling out. I needed to, um, I was aware that I needed to have more protein, partly because of the surgery I had.
Uh-huh.
Right, it lowers nutritional intake. There are a few things when one gets a bypass, their iron is at risk, their B12 is at risk,
Correction.
um, and um, and definitely protein because you don't break it down. There's not much acid in the stomach.
Mhm.
So I could see my protein levels on my labs were a little low, and I was like, okay, I do need protein. Even though a lot of the doctors, a lot of the vegan doctors, like even Furman, right, don't talk about protein enough.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I wonder how vegan athletes do it. So I went to YouTube and I found you guys. And I wasn't even planning on joining anything. For some reason, I was on it and then got this message back. Do you want to know how much protein you need? And I'm like,
The internet was stalking you.
yeah, what?
The internet was stalking you.
Yes. I got the message in the messenger. And I said, yeah, I want to know how much protein I need. You know. I mean, the whole idea of not turning to medicine over and over, like what I have done is become the doctor I was looking for.
Amen.
I wanted a doctor for my health. I wanted truth, right? I wanted honesty. I wanted something profound because what we get taught to do is clouded in all kinds of dishonesty. So to tell people, now I'm watching this documentary. The one that I shared was eating. I forgot what it's called.
Heat extinction.
Eating Our Way to Extinction. Something with Kate Winslet. And it's like I can actually look at this as a meat eater. I never could look at that.
Right.
I mean, that wasn't something I literally had to be vegan for a little while for that to now start to make sense. Why it's important that we don't eat meat. And so that I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot. Now I'm trying to build a business.
Well, I was just going to ask, what is your mission for I'm not going to say 20 years, for the next 5 years?
Well, I do want to build my own practice as a menopausal specialist, and because I remember being an OBGYN. I had been in the hospital working as an attending physician for, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 years. And I kept thinking while I was on call, like, I'm terrified that something really catastrophic will come in and I won't know what to do and I'm catastrophizing, right? And then I realized, how many times has that happened and I knew exactly what to do?
Exactly.
It's that moment where I go into flow.
Yeah.
And I respond appropriately and sometimes even come up with ideas that I would never have come up with had that situation not was not in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I mean, I can think of lots of different times where I was able to figure out what needed to happen, even though it wasn't the steps they taught me in school. Right. But my brain said, try this. Right. And it would work. Like I remember saving a baby's life doing that. Or I mean, it's so this catastrophizing, and I noticed that I was doing that, but now I'm looking back at that time and I thought, wow, it dawned on me in that moment that I had lots of emergencies. I just don't call them emergencies. I just respond. Right? And I did all the time I was growing up, which is probably what
I was gonna say that you've been doing it your whole life.
Right. It trained me to have these responses and to trust. That's what I mean by the little girl. But I've spent a lot of time not letting anybody really see her. So it's almost like everything I've done, nobody knew I was going to medical school. Nobody knew I was doing it.
Really? No one in your family?
No. Because I do everything under the radar. Like I didn't sit there and say, I'm about to apply to medical school. Or I didn't ask for help from anybody. I was just like, wow. I had a therapist. She helped me. She helped me get on disability. And she just said I had dysthymia, which is a chronic depression.
Mm-hmm.
And I got on Social Security eventually. First, I was a year of state disability. Then I was a year of my job had an extended disability for a second year. And then it was like they told me I had to apply for Social Security. I'm thinking I won't get that. They said no at first. The insurance said you have to write them a rebuttal. I wrote them a rebuttal and they gave me Social Security. And I got Medicare. So all the way through medical school, I had Social Security, and I had Medicare, and then I had whatever loans and whatever else, And I had more money in medical school than I ever had working at that point. Wow. Not that I had a ton of money, but I had enough to pay for chest.
Right.
Enough to pay.
I was going to say, you were raising a child. Yeah.
Right. So I had enough to do what I needed to do to get through. So I felt like God just rolled out the red carpet for me to figure it out, or for me to walk it. I just needed to keep walking and make the decision and make the decision and make the decision over and over without being too crazy about how I was going to do it. Mm-hmm. I don't think I really thought about that a lot. I don't even know why I didn't, but I didn't.
Well, it's good because you probably would have paralyzed yourself, to be honest.
Right. But it's just like I didn't even when I had to use all those credit cards in order to have the IVF. Mm-hmm. Right. I knew I was going to medical schools. There's no way I was going to be able to pay for that. So I did a bankruptcy at that point. I went to medical school and I did a bankruptcy at the same time, and they weren't going to take my baby back. I mean, I didn't know another way to do it. It was just me figuring out how to get it. Yeah. Right. So there's all kinds of those stories like that. That I don't know, but I really don't. really share what I'm thinking or trying to do because it's usually so outside the norm.
That but isn't that is okay. That's how we get the Dr. Furmans and the Dr. Campbells and the Dr. Esselstyns. If you thinking outside the norm is how we grow and how we find different ways to solve problems that we've all been struggling with.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because really, I wasn't born into a track that would put me in medical school.
Yeah.
And I didn't go to medical school till I was 35. And people say, oh, that was late. I'm like, nope, it was right on time.
It was the pace of you.
Right. I mean, I was not set up to do that the way most people do it. And then, of course, I'm 10 years older than most people starting medical school, right? So you can imagine that's one of the reasons that I got into trouble because I wrote that article and said how terrible it was. And then they put me on probation after that. And
They really
they wouldn't even take me off for almost a year, right? Because I wrote that article. They put the article in front of me and said, you wrote that?
it was, but it was accepted and published, so
Yeah, and they didn't say it was for that. But I know like that, they gave me a good whatever. They did a good evaluation 1 month and like a month later I was on probation and they said I was a terrible doctor or whatever. And then at one point they tried to do the Siggy caps on me to see if I was depressed. And because I was crying. I was upset that, I couldn't be with my daughter. She was sick, whatever, it was and I wasn't spending time with my family. All of that was really hard. And so I would cry and have feelings about that. And they would give me the Siggy caps and they're like, I knew what they were doing. They did it as if I didn't know. Like I was trained with the same
I was going to say you're not
Siggy caps, that's what you have to do for depression. I'm like, I'm not depressed, right? I'm sad.
and if it is, it's situational anyways.
Right. And so, and I've never really been depressed. I mean, I might say when I was first living in my apartment at 17, 18, so I came to California when I was 19. So, what I remember is taking $70, $80 and buying nothing but sugar food.
Oof.
Okay. Now that was in 1978. So you can imagine how much I had and
Mhm.
it was super unconscious. I just went up to the cash register and realized, oh, they must think I'm weird eating all this, buying
Sweet.
all of this sweets. And I proceeded to just eat till it hurt, take laxatives, go to sleep to get away from the pain, get up, do it again. And I remember this 2-week period where I would say that was probably the most depressed time I had. Is I had moved out of home. I hadn't really opened up any of the sexual abuse yet. I had all these boyfriends that were trying to. I remember one time a boyfriend was outside trying to see if there was anybody else coming into my house or something, or just crazy stuff like that. And it was just I was setting up this weird way of dealing with my sexuality, I guess, at that point. And this sugar was also part of, trying to sugar, it's interesting. Food and sugar, it's like you get to recreate I want it, but I feel shameful and embarrassed. You get to recreate it with I got to recreate it with food.
A lot of people do. Yeah.
I don't and I it was one of the ways I could say, Mom, I'm in trouble, right? I can't stop eating.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the whole way that we approach sex is the way that I was approaching my eating disorder. It was the feelings were similar. It was just a way of expressing it.
Yeah.
I bet it took a long time to understand all that. So yeah. So I feel like, being on I mean, like one of the things that helped me take off this weight was using that chronometer.
Uh-huh.
Right? Using the chronometer and I could kind of track how I was doing my protein and track calories and only those two things,
Yeah.
not the others. And then that was really helpful. And I'm not even using it now because I sort of have an idea that all my meals need to be high protein. So I have the way to do it right now. And I don't feel like if I don't even go shopping. I literally have Instacart bring me my food because I in the supermarket and it's so much noise. Like I feel like for my brain it was just so much noise and I don't even feel turned on by it anymore. Like ill. If my mind says, "Would you want the ill?" Ill, I don't want that. And I even one day had a really high stress day, and I was upset about something, and I said, "I'm gonna buy." I bought me one of those little Reese's candies, and I ate it, and I'm like, "This is nasty. How could any? How could I have ever loved this stuff? Like it's not in there anymore. It's like I don't have it where I want to eat that stuff anymore. It's a trip.
Much better to have some sweet potato lentil curry over some
And it's
quinoa.
and it's really delicious. Like, I've learned to cook really good food. I make, lentil pasta now. I use, tortillas that are 11 grams of protein each. I use, Beyond Burger. That was Plantrition taught me about Beyond Burger. I really like those. Those really taste like, we're eating hamburger, but it actually tastes better. And, I grow my own, greens now. Like, I have 3 hydroponics downstairs, and I all of my the greens that I eat, I grow myself now.
Do you have a GARDYN garden?
Yes. Yeah, I have
Yes.
3 of them now.
Oh my
Well,
God.
I bought 1 at Christmas, and I was looking at it for a while, and it was like $900. That's a lot of money. And so then they had a 25% off at Christmas, so I bought it, and I fell in love with it, and I get up every morning. Do you have one?
I don't, well, no, I had one when I was in Kansas City. I got a grant to get one for the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah.
And it was me just watching the kids planting and then watching the plants grow and then harvesting fresh food. It,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
It's nothing like it, and it now I've been doing it since Christmas, the whole month of December, so whatever many months now, is 7, 8 months now, and, I was like, "I have all these extra plants," 'cause, they tell you to cut all the extras out, you can only do 1 in each one of those little cubes, but instead of me just cutting and getting rid of them, I put them in different I grow them too, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but and grow them too, right? And so I had all these extra plants, and so then I was like, "Oh, I need another one." And Ken was like, "You can't afford another one." And I'm like, "Ah." And then we walk right outside, and this somebody was throwing one away, and I'm like, "Are you kidding?" And he got all excited. And I'm like, "It don't work, right?" But it does. We fix it.
It's kind of a way of pollution and garden.
Yeah, they and I cleaned it up. It was a mess. I mean, it was just dirty and,
Yeah.
not well cared for. I needed a cord and, a couple other pieces that cost me what, total of about $120 or something. And
Fine.
then I had 2, and then I just bought a refurbished one. So now I have 3 all sitting right next to each other. And, I also put some of them in the yard, but I'm in Arizona, so it's pretty dry and hot here. But there are some things that grow well. Tomatoes grow well, peppers grow well, all the basil.
Yep.
Yeah, all of those grow well here. The lemons and oranges, all the citrus fruits, grapefruit, all of that. Dates, you get dates here. So there's a few things that really grow pretty well here. But I have some watermelon seeds I put out, and so those are growing pretty well, even though it's been like 14 degrees or whatever. So this stuff that grows here, so I just have to learn what they are. So
And the thing is that anything that and what I'm learning about you is that if you invest in it, you will make it happen.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Teresa, I have taken way too much of your time. I actually lost track. I'm so sorry.
No, yeah, I'm good. I actually blocked 2 hours anyway. I didn't know how long it would be, so I was like, "Oh, I'll block 2 hours because then, who wants to come out of this and go right into a consult or something?"
Oh gosh, no.
Because that was a deep dive in like my whole life.
You're well, I want to ask you one last question, and then I will give you a couple minutes so that you can take a deep breath before you go on to your next.
Okay.
But what is the message that you want to share with anyone who's listening to this podcast about how they can become? I mean, I guess I have 2 questions. One, you have overcome so much, and you literally are a Weeble. And I use the Weeble example all the time. No matter, every time something tried to pop you down, you pop back up again. How do you teach people how to Weeble? And then I'll leave it there. How do you teach people how to Weeble?
Hmm. One part of how I teach them is I'm so outside the box. There's something about being outside the box that they go, "Whoa, I would have never thought of that." That piece. One of the things I teach is there's always 100 solutions to any problem,
Hmm.
right? Even though I can only think of two, there's still 98 more I could probably try and come up with, or even ask for other people's thoughts.
Yep.
Right? Like the more you have, more people that are in a room and you ask them that question, the more ideas people come up with. It's kind of amazing. But one of the things I also say is, we could live half our life in menopause,
We can. Yeah.
right? Potentially, if we're lucky, we can live half our life in menopause. How do we want that to go? Right. And we can give the responsibility to the corporations, or we can take charge
Hmm.
of it. Um, and then you learn how to take charge and not need a doctor. Really, I try to help people say, I want you not to need them. You
Exactly.
want to be able to use them, if you break a bone or you get in a car accident or you're having a heart attack. Don't come to me if you're having a heart attack, right? I'm not the right person, right? But anything chronic has everything to do with our lifestyle, right? So you could live the second half of your life. How do you want that to go, right? We can I say, I know people who are on 15 to 20 medications, and those people are on their way to a nursing home.
Hmm.
Okay, but there, and someone like me who wants to eat vegetables and be able to be active, and when I'm 100 years old, I want to be skiing still
Uh-huh.
and dancing. I'm a salsa dancer. That's another thing, right? So I like dancing. Most partner dancing. I love partner dancing, right? Mostly like salsa and cha cha, but also hustle. I was a big hustle dancer in the 70s in New York. I was right in the middle of when rap all started. But so I've always loved to dance and music and stuff. But how do you want it to go for the second half of your life? This is your awakening. I want you to reimagine menopause.
Yeah. Beautiful. I want to thank you so much for sharing your story. Um, I have learned so much about you, and I have so much respect for who you are and what you've
Oh,
been
thank
through.
you.
So thank you so much.
Now I feel like I have to get to know you now.
Oh, that's a boring story compared to yours.
Bet not. I bet not. I bet not. That's what we all say. I'm gonna see you at the plantrician, I hope, this year.
Are you going to our retreat or
No,
will we
wait,
have?
well, no, well, I didn't sign up for it, partly because I didn't have the money for it, right? But I'll second think that I would like to go out there. And then I was worried about having to fly into Newark and all the stuff that was going on. But
A lot of people are worried about flying into Newark, so
yeah, yeah, maybe I don't have to fly into Newark. Maybe I'll fly in somewhere else.
plantation may be better.
Right, right, yeah. No, but the plantrician thing, because it's in Philly, I think, right? Is that what I remember seeing? Not in Philly, but in Pennsylvania.
The plantation?
No, no, no. Plantrician is over here in
I
California.
was going to say, what's in California?
No, I was thinking about the vegan. Well, that's what I was. Yeah,
It's
that's
in,
gonna be it.
it's in the Poconos. Yeah.
And the Poconos, and yeah, the Poconos. I remember going to when it was like snowy and stuff when I was a kid.
I was going to say if they move plantation to Philly, I'm like,
I was getting them confused.
California is much more attractive.
Oh yeah, yeah. So it's gonna be at a resort though, so it'll be nice. I think. Yeah, I really enjoyed it last year.
I'm sorry. I mean, I want to be there in person this year because I was stuck in I won't say nursing home, but I
I,
was in a
I remember.
rehab.
I remember you being. I remember. I was at your lecture.
Yeah. Yep.
But did I come in this year?
I'm hoping to be there this year.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably see you there then.
That would be fun.
Yeah, and Ken's gonna come out. He's probably not going to the conference, but he's gonna come along. So
Well, you can pop in and get some food.
yeah, exactly. Yes.
Oh, I forgot to ask the most important question. Where can people contact you if they want to have a consult or learn more about orgasmic medicine?
Oh, they can look up my website, orgasmicmedicine.com. They can also find me on Orgasmic Medicine Inc. on Facebook.
Okay.
And then I can leave a phone number, which is 916-896-4443. Um, and I'm very easy to talk to, as you can see. I'm just a human being like everybody else. I don't really put on a lot of airs, but I'm very honest and forthright, and have had lots of experiences to share with other people.
And you care.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm really passionate about this. It's like I feel like, I had to learn so much to be able to do what I do with my own health, and it wasn't anything, and I always tell people, for me it was a journey. Don't get upset if you don't do it right away, even if you take a piece at a time.
Dip your toe in.
Yep, dip your toe in. Yeah.
Dr. Diaz, thank you so much for joining us on Thrive on Plane.
Thank you for having this with me and being, such a fabulous host, because I felt really open to share all this stuff.
Well, thank you. If you ever doubted that lifestyle could be the tool in your toolkit to heal, let Dr. Teresa Diaz be your proof. This wasn't just a conversation. It was a story of reclaiming her body, her voice, and most importantly, of reclaiming radical self-trust. Dr. Diaz didn't just survive abuse, oppression, infertility, obesity, and cancer. She transmuted them into purpose, into fierce compassion, into a new paradigm for how we need to focus on women's health and what women's health can look like when we lead with truth, intuition, and most importantly, plant-powered medicine. If this episode moved you as it moved me, please share it. Share it with someone who may resonate with Dr. Diaz's story, or who may just need to hear her message that you can. You can survive, and you can thrive, and you can rise above your circumstances today. Because that's all that we all are trying to do, sometimes on a day-to-day basis. In the meantime, thank you for joining me today. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you did too. And until next time, keep thriving on plants and living with purpose. Be well. The information shared on the Thrive on Plants podcast is intended solely for educational and informational purposes. It is not medical advice, and it should never be used as a substitute for personalized guidance from a qualified healthcare professional. Always consult with your physician or healthcare provider before making any changes to your nutrition, exercise routine, supplement use, or your overall wellness plan. The opinions and advice shared by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Vegan Gym or its team. While we aim to bring you high-quality, thoughtful conversations, these perspectives are not intended to replace professional medical care. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, you have the power to thrive on plants and live with purpose.